the things I do just to be able to have some perspective. By the way, we are definitely going to have a conversation here about some audio description. So if you're really interested in that, please stick through the review. I'm going to try to do these faster. I know my reviews are really long, so let's get to it. I'm Mac from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is a review of Firestarter, the original one from 1984. This film's almost as old as I am. And the only reason I'm not going to spoil the shit out of it is because I know there's a remake dropping on Peacock, which is the whole reason that I reviewed this film, and I feel like you could watch this one, and then if it's just a beat-for-beat remake, which I have no idea yet, then it would just have spoiled the film for you. So I have to do this carefully, even though it violates everything I feel about a movie being too old to spoil. This film is almost as old as I am, literally. So, yeah. I'm a blind film critic, so that's why we're going to talk about audio description, is because that's what I do on this channel. Is I talk about films with my film degree and audio description. Yes, go get yourself a film degree and then go blind. That's definitely a profitable future ahead for you. Make sure it's a cinema studies degree too. Make sure you know nothing about actual film production. I always knew about Firestarter. I knew it was based on a Stephen King novel, and I knew that Drew Barrymore was in it. That's the extent of what I knew about Firestarter. I mean, other than the fact that I assumed fires are being started. But I did not know, and nobody has ever told me, and everyone, it's all your fault. I blame all of you. Everybody. What the hell? This has an amazing cast in it. Like, why does nobody talk about how, by the way, it's not just Drew Barrymore. Oh, it's also Martin Sheen, George C. Scott, Art Carney, Louise Fletcher. That's a lot of Oscar nominees. That's a strange amount of Oscar nominees to just gloss over that. It's also got Keith David here and Heather Locklear. I would say that's a pretty stacked cast, especially for 1984. They did a pretty good job. I mean, historically, nobody's gonna like roll over and forget this film because there's no one in it. So that's a huge plus, and definitely when these people are acting, they're on point because they're great actors. So even when you give them mediocre dialogue, they're able to spout it out with, you know, all of the eloquence of all of the roles they've done in the past. So that was a huge plus. But in case you have no idea what Firestarter is, brief rundown here. It's about a couple played by Keith David and Heather Locklear who volunteer for an experiment because they need some quick cash. They're not a couple at the time, but they gain powers because of, I guess, the similarity of having the powers gained from the experiment, which is what the government was kind of going for. They end up together, and then they have a kid, and then time moves forward, and then we have Drew Barrymore as the kid. Not very old, but old enough to be able to have dialogue instead of them running around with a baby in their arms for an entire movie. And then the government, which is comprised of a bunch of characters, but includes, but not limited to, Martin Sheen and George C. Scott, are trying to track them down. And along the way, while escaping, the Firestarter family runs into a nice, kindly old farm couple played by Art Carney and Louise Fletcher, who, considering who they are, and this being 1984, and their careers likely did not fizzle out that quickly, this is kind of a small role for them, but I appreciated it nonetheless. So, and chaos ensues. You know, you wouldn't like Drew Barrymore when she gets angry. And that's the film. It's fine. It's as far as like Stephen King novels go, it actually sort of feels like the more tame Stephen King novel. Like, I mean, he's made some crazy shit, and aside from some stuff that happens in like the first part of the film with the actual experiment of the that David Keith and Heather Locklear go into, the rest of the film is pretty standard and not very violent. The most, because everybody just kind of bursts into flames, which I can't imagine is that gory. Like if I had actually visually seen this film, I don't think I'd be like, oh, the gore. I might be like, oh, the cheesy fireball special effects for 1984. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what the production budget was. Didn't look that up. Doesn't matter. That's about it. Yeah. So I don't know what else to say. It feels kind of tame for Stephen King. That's pretty much. It doesn't feel. I mean, he's made some pretty batshit crazy things. When you look at the totality of his work, and Firestarter feels like the book that he wrote for kids, almost. I have no idea. Maybe the book is like way worse. Maybe in the book, she turns people's skin inside out or something. I have no idea. But it can't possibly pass the children orgy that happens in it that they keep having to leave out of every adaptation, because no matter what, everybody's always like, that's a bit much. We're not putting that on film. Why is this in the book? And yeah, so that's Firestarter. I actually liked it more than I thought I was going to, because I thought it was going to be like a cheesy 80s horror movie. But as far as, I always try to take myself back. I really do. I know it didn't seem that way to the Candyman fans, because I blasted that movie, but I really did take myself back to 1992, and I was like, okay, I'm in 1992, and this is Candyman. And go. So I did the same thing here with Firestarter. I was like, okay, I'm in 1984. This is Firestarter. Drew Barrymore's tiny. And go. And so I try to think about things like from this is the 80s perspective. What were films like in the 80s? Is this typical of the 80s? Is this quality for the 80s? Where would this have landed if I was in 1984? If I was not 1 year old in 1984, I was able to see this and review it, what would I have done with it? So I thought it was pretty good. Didn't blow my mind. There's this one scene with the two worst actors in humanity. I don't even know where they found them. I think they just like walked out on the street and was like, hey, who wants to be in a movie? And like two people were like, this is a chance. There's a scene with Drew Barrymore and Keith David, and they're like in a phone booth, and they keep listening to this conversation being had between like a couple that's, I don't know, 2 steps shy of domestic violence. I don't know how else to put that. And she's like, I can't do this without you. And he's like, stop following me. And it's like the worst acting. It's just, and they have like this little exchange, and then we cut back to Keith David and Drew Barrymore, and then we go back to the couple, because for some reason the film decides to make that important, these two actors. So we're like stuck with them for 2 little sets of dialogue, and they're like the worst 2 actors. I don't even care who they are. I don't care. Watch my video and respond and be like, I was one of those actors, and I'm like, you're a terrible actor. Sorry, not sorry. Hashtag get acting lessons. But that's about it. I mean, it totally stood out for me. Hearing those two go back and forth with their dialogue. I was like, who are these people? Did nepotism give them their roles? That scene was really bad. But there's some other stuff in the film. But it's mostly fine. Yeah. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Like I said, trying to make my review shorter. So let's get to the audio description. Holy crap. All right. So first of all, I had to search for this one. I'm not going to say how, what, where, when, why, But I was able to find Firestarter with audio description eventually. Not maybe the best way, but I found one. There's a Firestarter out there that has audio description. So let's talk about this audio description provided by something called IFTC. What is IFTC? I don't think it's a person. I don't think it's I think it's a person and not an organization. I think this is some dude who didn't want to put his name on the audio description that he homebrew in his house. And I have a lot of thoughts about that. First of all, shame on the industry for anybody feeling like they need to do that. That's why we need universal audio description for blind people. We need that. I should not be reviewing audio description that was made by some dude in his house and then sent out to the world. And how do I know that this was made by some dude in his house and that IFTC cannot possibly be a real organization? And if it is a real organization, then fuck you, IFTC. But he clears his throat audibly during the audio description, which I've never heard before. I've listened to like audiobooks and I haven't heard anybody leave that in. You know, everybody always, like, somebody is smart enough to clear that out of the audio description. It's like you get all of me in one continuous shot. So if I clear my throat or I cough or I sneeze or whatever like that, it's because obviously I'm doing this by holding an iPhone. I have no editor, I have no team. But if I were to put that out into the real world and put it as like coming from an organization, you know, the quality of what I do would not be on par to try to make it look like I'm coming from an organization. And when there are narrators and when there are writers and when there are sound mixers and this whole team that go into this audio description for the stuff that we get that is actually good quality, when I get to sit here and I get to talk about, you know, Jedediah Barton and all of the other narrators and their terrific work. And now I'm this guy at home. The mic quality isn't good. It doesn't feel like it's a studio mic. It feels like it's a home microphone. There's no sound balancing or mixing. Every time the narration comes in, the film volume drops completely so that we can hear the audio description. It's very sort of jarring and it'll take you out of it. It's like it's clearly overlaid instead of blended. There's a lot of problematic things. It's okay audio description. I'm not going to blast the audio description. I mean, I was able to follow the movie, but there are parts in which the audio description let me down and he just didn't describe it. There's sort of like a trippy part to the beginning trial that the two go through where there wasn't a lot of description. There was just sort of like some weird music and then like their voices changed and I didn't quite follow and understand what was going on. Then like later on, it revealed that they could hear each other's thoughts, that they were telekinetic or telepathic, I mean, and that was what they gained from the experience. But at the time, it was just like, what happened to the sound? What's going on here? Why am I not getting enough audio description? It doesn't come back in until somebody's like eyes are bleeding, and then it like lets me know about that. But there's obviously like some other things happening. I hate when I can hear sound effects and I'm always like, ooh, something's happening, but I don't know what that is. You just hear sound effects. And or you hear like some scuffle or somebody screaming or howling or moaning or whatever, and like there's never any like clarity to it. It's that always just sort of it sucks to have to deal with that, and that's what I'm here for. That's why I go through audio description and review it, is to let people know, hey, this audio description is not great. This audio description is amazing. This audio description is whatever it is. But this audio description was made by some dude in his house. And there's a reason why professional audio description is made. It's like, I feel like we have a multi-tier system where we have like the top tier audio description, usually coming from some major studio like Media Access Group or Deluxe, but there are some other studios that have popped up that do real audio description and hire real narrators. And then we have what Amazon is doing by just putting robo description on everything, and a lot of that doesn't even have quality check. They just put robo description on top of dialogue. Doesn't even make sense. And then we have, I guess, people at home feeling like that they need to take it upon themselves to just start audio describing things. I don't know. And it's such a weird film to audio describe too. Like, somebody was sitting at home and they were like, I'm gonna do Firestarter. This is where we start. I mean, there's so many classics out there. I could understand if somebody was like, you know what we need? You know what the world needs and has not been provided? I don't know, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. You know, like, let's get some classics done. We started with Firestarter. Cool. I mean, it helped me out, but I also would have still watched the Peacock movie, and even if I didn't see the original, it just allowed me to see the original and have more perspective. So, yeah, if you find Firestarter with audio description, I will tell you that the audio description is obviously made by some dude in his house. It is not real audio description, which means it's not legitimate, which means we should not be watching it. There you go. That's the long and short of it. I'm always interested in exploring the world of audio description, so I'm glad that I ran into this so that I could discuss it and talk about homegrown audio description. But it's so tough for me because I believe in a world where everything has audio description, where we have the same thing where deaf people can just click in and it's got, closed captioning, you know? Like, why can't we just have the same? Why do we have only like selective programming? Why are only some things accessible for me and other things are not? That's very frustrating. And it gets even more frustrating when you know something has audio description, but it just didn't carry to another streaming service. That pisses me off more than anything else, is when like the same movie is offered on two different streaming services, but one streaming service doesn't care enough to have the audio description track for the film. And the other one did bother to get it, or neither of them do, and you have to pay for it on video on demand to get simple fucking accessibility for a film. You know, that's a problem. Unfortunately, we're so busy legislating random crap that we can't actually legislate anything like this that would actually help a disabled group of people with their actual needs. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to go to a website like the Audio Description Project to find out where audio description exists and what titles, just because everything had it, and you and it didn't matter what streaming service you were on, you just had audio description? Wouldn't that be a nice world to live in? I think it would be. But instead, sometimes we have to go to great lengths to find audio description, and when you find it, turns out it's some dude in his house. So anyway, that's my rant on audio description. Hopefully I'm still under 20 minutes. We'll see. Probably not. I have to grade Firestarter. So I'm going to give Firestarter, the 1984 version, a B. That's it for me today on this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell your other blind friends that there's a guy out there and he reviews audio description along with the movie itself, so we can keep talking about audio description, because the more people talk about it, the better it gets, I'm sure. That's what I'm hoping. And Don't forget, like I said, audio description project for all your audio description needs. And MacTheMovieGuy.com is my site for more reviews. And I guess very shortly after this, I'll be posting a review of the Peacock day and date drop. I have no idea who's in that film. None. Know nothing about it. So that should be fun. I'm sure it'll be gorier.